A1. Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Damn. Cooler and I'm flyer too.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the show that's cool and fly too. A1 Forever Sports. Chris Moore here. Why settle for less when you can have more with the vision and be generational, because it's always time to be. Got a special guest today, Mr. Aaron Freeman, joining me to talk Atlanta Falcons. Let's bring him in right now. Back again, first time of the new year. Had to bring in my guy, Aaron Freeman. You already know him, but I just enjoy when he introduces himself, of the illustrious Locked On Falcons Network. So just go ahead and just tell him who you are, man. Just one time for us.
Yeah, you guys can find me as the host of the illustrious podcast, the Locked On Falcons podcast. It's always funny when other people say it to me. But yeah, you can find my work, 5 days a week on Locked On Falcons, YouTube, wherever you find your podcast, all that stuff and more. And occasionally I write something over at the Falcoholic, the SB Nation website for the Atlanta Falcons.
Hey, there you go. Now that's something new I didn't know.
Yeah, because I've been writing that much over the last couple of months. That's why. True.
Indeed. All right, man, real quick, before I got a crazy story real quick that it just the letters AF just always have haunted me, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna tell you why. I first started fantasy football, right? I had started fantasy football that year, and I did an auto draft. So a couple of players, auto draft, of course, I'm like, okay, I know this guy. Hold on, who is it? Arian Foster. Who in the world is Arian Foster? Drop. Yeah, dropped Arian Foster. Didn't even think about it. I'm talking about it was without question. It would just drop. Went and picked up me somebody else. Week 1, I think that man had 2 or 3 touchdowns. I went to try to find Arian Foster. This man was gone. And for the rest of the season and for the rest of his career, I could never draft Arian Foster. And the reason why this story is just so crazy, because every time I see him score a touchdown, and kids, if there's any kids watching this, I'm sorry, you may want to turn away or whatever. Every time he scored, all I could say is, oh, fuck. Every time he scored, every time. I could never get that man since then. Just a real quick, crazy story, man. But let's get into this Atlanta Falcons, man. So as far as their moves and everything, for me, I give it an A-, me personally. I like the moves. I enjoy them. I feel like they addressed a lot of needs. They didn't go, after the Lamar Jackson, they wasn't in that sweepstakes, which me personally, I didn't want to. We have too many needs. So, but how do you feel about the moves that the Atlanta Falcons have made thus far?
Yeah, I like them. They got a difference maker up front for the pass rush in David Onyamata. They got a difference maker on the back end in Jesse Bates, the safety. They got a difference maker at linebacker for Caden Ellis, and 2 former Saints in Ellis and Onyamata. They're going to help the pass rush. Bates is going to definitely help the coverage. They were able to keep Kaleb McGary. That was probably the biggest internal free agent that they had to, figure out what they were going to do at that right tackle spot. They were able to keep him on a very team-friendly deal, which I think a lot of people went into the week questioning if that was going to be the case. And certainly early on Monday when we saw these monster contracts going to some of the other right tackles available in the market, you were like, oh, okay, I don't know if we're going to be able to get Kaleb McGary, and they were able to find a way to sort of figure that out. And so, they got a trade for Jonnu Smith. So you elevate the tight end room as well. We know Arthur Smith loves having his toys at the tight end position. Yeah. So I think they did a pretty solid job. Maybe didn't make as many huge splashes as I think a lot of people were kind of expecting given all their cap space, but I think they did a solid job finding pretty good bang for their buck, at multiple positions, which is kind of what I was hoping for this year.
Correct, man. I mean, just because you have all that money don't mean you go spend it all in one place. So I mean, they save some money. They still do have some money if they want to make some more, some moves and whatever. And I enjoyed the moves, like you just said, and picked up plenty of difference makers. Grady's getting some help. So they're coming from the New Orleans and they with Nielsen, so it's going to be similar. Everything's still going to be similar, and having some players coming into his system. I enjoyed that. As far as like the Chris Lindstrom, I'm hearing like mixed reviews about giving him or making him like the highest paid, but I think the man deserves it. I mean, he was like the best. He's like what last 2 seasons. He's been like the best, or at least you can make an argument.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to the numbers that you were probably talking about, like I was thinking, like he got what 5 years, 105, so that's 21 million. I was thinking like 5 years, 90 million or something like that. Like so, like once you get to those numbers, like 90 million, 95, 105, like does the extra 10 million, the extra 15 million really, hurt
right.
the
And in a
contract?
minute, we already know in about like a year or less, he's not even. It's not even going to matter. Somebody's going to top that, and that's just how it goes. It's just the new market always gets set.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, it's all about the guaranteed money. You got like 60 million or something like that. We haven't seen quite the structure of it, but like he's going to be a Falcon for probably 3 or 4 more years. So, if they're paying him $60 million over that time frame, it's like,
Well, they said
what were your
28, something like that.
yeah, like what were your options? Like I mean, you can go cheap, at that position, but good luck finding someone as good as Chris Lindstrom. So
You're not.
I don't. It doesn't make any sense to be that critical. He's one of the best guards in football. Whether he's 1, 2, or 10 is pretty inconsequential. He helps you win each and every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So as far as saying David Onyamata, and how do you really feel like him and Grady is going to pair together?
I think that it's a good pairing. I think the thing that Onyemata brings to the table that made him a good pairing with Cameron Jordan is because Jordan was the type of player that you could move around your defensive line to get him in favorable matchups. And Onyemata is another player that you can move around. He can play multiple spots. We know Grady Jarrett can play multiple spots. We've seen him at DN. We've seen him at nose tackle. Right. So you can get those two guys lined up next to each other in a variety of different ways. And because, Grady Jarrett is going to draw these double teams, that's going to get one-on-ones with Onyemata. You can put Onyemata in a position where teams will be forced to kind of slide their protections to his side. And that will get Grady Jarrett one-on-one. So I think it's a really good combination. They're two very like-minded veteran players that probably have, gained a lot of respect for each other, watching the other one play over the last, 6, 7 years. So came into league around the same time, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think 2015 for Grady and 2016 for Onyemata. Right. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that they will be bosom buddies. If Grady Jarrett's Batman, then Onyemata will slide right in to be, his Robin.
Right, because the Falcons had trouble with that quarterback pressures, and that's one thing that Onyemata can help with. I think he had like I'm not sure about the exact number right now, but I know he was pretty high as far as like providing pressure to the quarterback, something that we definitely need to do. Always get the quarterback off his spot so we can be able to be successful. And as far as Jesse Bates, I know that's another thing as far as like people was talking about the contract. Shoot, I was talking about the contract, just 23 million his first year with 36 over the first 2 years. And I mean, I feel like that's what you're really paying him for. He's not necessarily going to see the whole contract. Do you think?
Well, he could. He's one of those rare free agents that could see the whole contract just because of how young he is. He's only 25, 26.
26.
I think he just turned 26 maybe. So, safety's not a position that usually, guys don't usually play very long, into like their mid 30s or anything like that. So we'll have to sort of see how far that goes. But if any one of these guys is going to play out 5 years, then he's probably the best bet. But you're probably right. You'll probably get like 3 definite years out of that, and then we'll see at that point.
Right. I mean, regardless, difference maker on the back end. What think he led the league in deflections or something like that. So I mean, then he also had a low grade as far as when he was in the area, as far as like completed passes. So I'm just hoping he brings that all to Atlanta because we definitely need it. And I also noticed that Isaiah Oliver, he is moving on. So I'm thinking it's safe to say that they seen enough from D Alford last year to just allow, Isaiah just to move on like that. And I'm happy about that because I know I was definitely pulling for D last year, even before around about this time we was talking last year.
Yeah, you definitely were one of the first people on the D Alford bandwagon. So when I saw Oliver leaving, I did think about like, yeah, I know you're going to be one of the few people. It's like you're not too worried about that because I know you're a big fan of D Alford. And I thought Alford, a little inconsistent, but I think that's owed to just being first time playing in the NFL, making that adjustment. I think he showed a lot of potential there. Like when he was on and playing really well. So I'm very interested in seeing what steps and how he grows, in his second year in the NFL. And I do think he can sort of hold down that nickel cornerback spot and give the Falcons a really good player there for many years to come.
Right. I definitely feel the same. I mean, we'll see what happens, with the other guys in the secondary and where they start moving around now, like the Darren Halls of the world, the Richie Grants and everything. But I feel like Richie's probably still going to be starting. I feel like he's going to start right next to Jesse. And we're going to rock out like that. I do want another corner, though, man. I was hoping, man, that Slay was going to get released. Man, I wanted Slay, man. I was on Twitter talking. I ain't going to lie to you. I ain't what they say, I ain't gonna cap you down. I was on there talking. I was like, yeah, come on home. We can throw a party in Brunswick, make it happen. Then here come the wife. I can't even be mad at her. Can't even be mad at her. I ain't mad.
Yeah, man. That was an interesting couple of hours where
man.
Every team in the NFL was like, can we get Darius Slay? Can we get Darius Slay?
Listen.
Everybody was
I feel like
I
think behind the scenes, Terry at least made a phone call. I think he did. But yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah, I was on that Slay bandwagon. Like I said, I want another corner, man. We may have to wait until the draft. That's what it's looking like. I mean, who's really left? That's really like a big splash. So it's
I just looked at the list earlier today, and it was like maybe Marcus Peters.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a mid-grade. I think that's a mid-grade. I mean, he's not bad. But
yeah,
I initially wanted Jalen Ramsey. I'm not gonna lie about that. I feel like we could have gave a practice squad guy and a third rounder for Jalen, but whatever. I mean, whatever. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, like, we know, regardless, corner's gonna get burnt here and there. Everyone has a highlight tape of getting burnt. But we can't say that man is not a good corner, and putting him next to AJ Terrell, that would have been something, and still been able to get Jesse. Oh my goodness! But a man can dream. A Falcon fan can dream.
Yeah.
Falcon fan can dream, man. Back to want to recircle back to Kaleb McGary, man. You said, team friendly contract. When I first seen the numbers, and I was like, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I'm glad he was able to. I feel like come to his senses and just be like, hey, man, it's more work I have to do here in Atlanta. They gave me my shot, and he did get better. He still has some more work to improve. But, I mean, Pro Football Focus has him pretty high. There's only like a couple of right tackles that's ahead of him. I think he's still in the top 5. So, I enjoy. I think Kaleb was going to bring something to the table. I think he has something to prove. And I feel like the two parties, the Falcons and McGary, they probably talked, and he probably saying, hey, look, man, I know I still got some more work to do. Let's just get it happen, get it done.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at those grades, it's mostly because of the run blocking. He's gotten better as a pass blocker, but he's still probably like average there.
I agree.
But, and I think that was the main concern where it's like, do you want to pay a premium for a guy that's just kind of average in pass protection, and like you're gonna have to game plan a little bit for, give him some help against certain players or whatever, and like if you have to pay a lot of money and then have to game plan around him, like that's not a good combination. But I think with the price that they wound up paying, that's probably about the most that you could realistically feel comfortable paying and still feel like, okay, well, if we have to game plan some stuff around him and give him some chip help or whatever in the protections and all that stuff, like we're fine with that. But that price tag. So I think it was a very team friendly deal. I think it's a good deal for the Falcons. It's a good deal for Kaleb McGary. He gets some security moving forward. Obviously, should benefit from continue to play next to Chris Lindstrom, get some of the coaching that the Falcons have, and continue to maintain the progress that he's shown, the last couple of years and get better. And hopefully, he can be even better in 23 than he was in 22, especially if he can make strides as a pass protector.
Right. And that's where I hope he's making his strides at. I feel like he's going to try to work on that. And he really needs to, because if he can get better, then man, I feel like he can go somewhere. I feel like we can do some things. So we definitely need that side taken care of. We already know who's taking care of the left tackle position. But speaking of, who's going to be next to Jake? Like, are we going to go to the draft? Are we still we believing in Wilkerson? I mean, it's just like they're doing some strategic moves, but it's like, are you going to pay for one? Because you've seen offensive linemen getting some money. They're getting some money.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens there. I've been assuming all along that Wilkinson will be back. They'll re-sign him. But I also was making that same assumption about Isaiah Oliver too. So who knows at that point?
He offered. Telling y'all, man, watch. All right, watch.
So, for me, like I've been assuming like they'll bring back Wilkinson. They'll have him and probably Matt Hennessy sort of compete for that job.
Yeah.
But if they don't bring back Wilkinson, then, I do think, we'll see if they sign a free agent, but yeah, I do think it's possible that they could go into the draft looking to address that position early at some point.
All right. Well, speaking of draft, man, people have been talking about Jalen Carter. I know he got his pretty much his sentencing with the $1,000 fine, 80 hours community service, 12 months probation, and the defensive driving course. And hopefully he can just move on from there. But people can say how they want to feel. I mean, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. Here's mine. If he falls to 8, he shouldn't make it to 9. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'll take him right now. Everybody talking about, oh yeah, he don't put on some weight and cramping through his drills and everything. And I'm like, just let him fall to 8. That's all I ask. that's all I ask. There's no way in the world I'm not taking him if he's there at 8. I don't care what anybody says.
I don't know anything about anything else other than what he brings on the football field. So I can't speak to that. That will be up to NFL teams to figure out that stuff. But just watching the football player on the field, he's a heck of a football player. And I would have no problem with it, based off of the information I have for him at 8. I think he's the best player in this draft. If, I haven't done my final quarterback evaluations, but I'll basically say at this point, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud have a very high hill to climb in order for them to leapfrog Jalen Carter on my personal, draft ranking. So we'll see what happens with him. We'll see what NFL teams feel like, because they're obviously going to do a lot more digging than I am going to do. I'm just going to watch him wreck SEC guards and centers and tackles, and that's all I need to see in order to know that he's a good football player.
People with one arm and all that stuff like that. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, and and if it's just immaturity issues, or whatever that often come with people that age. I remember when I was that age, don't, man, if I was 6'3", 310 pounds and the best football player in the country, you wouldn't have been able to tell me nothing. But
same. It's just like, I mean, it happens, man. Everybody makes mistakes, man. Like, it's a really early age, man. He still has time to give back, to still, make a difference in the community, however he feels he needs to do it. But football player, man, excellent football player. Definitely would love him on my team to be mentored by Grady and, and Onyamata, so just the culture. Get him in the culture. And man, he's going to be a great football player.
Yeah, I think the same thing. If it's just, he's a typical 22, whatever, 21-year-old
Right.
Guy, you get him in this building, he'll be fine in Atlanta. I'm sure he'll be fine in a lot of other places. A lot of other teams
True. True.
picking ahead of the Falcons probably got veteran leadership that they will feel pretty good about taking him under his wing. And if it's just basically, making sure that he crosses his T's and dots his I's with some of this stuff or whatever it is, then, I think he'll be fine. So, that will be up to NFL teams to decide. But, for you and I, we just marvel at the football player, and he's a heck of a football player.
Okay, so someone does take Mr. Carter. I've been hearing about this. I've been actually hearing multiple reports actually about this Nolen Smith at number 8. Now, I know he's coming off injury. I know the leadership is unquestioned. So, would you be happy with Nolen at number 8?
8 feels a little rich for Nolen, where I'm at with
Doesn't
Nolen. But I'm probably gonna go and probably watch some film of him this weekend, just to refresh my memory, because
right.
I remember going into the season where he was being like mocked like top 10, top 15, and watching him the previous year at Georgia, I was like, he's a good player, but I don't know if he's like that type of pass rusher, right?
Right.
Has the skills, 5-star, has all the, intangibles, whatever you want to call it, that you're looking for, but I just don't know if he has quite the skill set. But what I saw from him before he got injured this year, I did feel like he did take a step there. So I do want to kind of go back and take a deeper look at some of the film he put out this year to sort of, because I think with him, you're betting on those intangibles. He's going to be a pro's pro, and you're also betting on, even similar to other Georgia players, probably not Jalen Carter, but other guys that we've seen the last couple of years, like they're not coming into the NFL as these super, super polished guys, right? They're coming in basically with a bunch of traits and athleticism and flashes of potential, but you're going to have to kind of hone it in to that. And so, that's kind of going to be the determination. But right now, I'm not quite there for Nolen Smith at 8, but, maybe after a film study this weekend, I might be a little bit more open to that idea.
I understand that. Yeah, I have to do some more research myself. I was seeing it and I was like, I like Nolen. I like him a lot. I was like, man, at number 8, I feel like that's like a trade back and then get him later on in the first round type thing. But just at 8, not sure. But hey, I'm definitely going to be checking it out myself. And then as we're moving closer to the draft anyway, and we're getting down to like who we're really trying to narrow down and guesstimate who the Falcons may take, so it's gonna get down. It's a few good players that I feel like we can pick up. And I enjoy the fact that we're gonna give the keys to Ritter and see what he can do, man. I'm all for Dez, man. I'm on his side.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a war zone out there in these Twitter streets, and I'm sure you probably seen it in your YouTube comment section when it comes to who should the Falcons quarterback be. But yeah, I'm definitely in favor of them kind of seeing what Ritter can have. My thing with the Lamar stuff, while I was not necessarily in favor of them trading it for him. I'm a fan of Lamar as a player. I may not be as big a fan of him as maybe other people are, but I do think he's a good player. It just, to me, that whole thing was like, if you're trading for Lamar, you're basically going all in on the Super Bowl. And I don't know if the Falcons are quite there yet. I think we're a couple of years away from making that move. And so I think it's in this team's best interest at this point to kind of, slow play it probably a little bit and sort of build that sort of firm foundation. I think the free agents that they've gotten this offseason, the draft picks that they'll get, will help solidify that. And if Ritter's not the guy, if he's not the guy that can get you into playoff contention, this year, next year, whenever, then you should be in a position at that point to maybe make that all-in move for a Lamar Jackson type of player and feel like, okay, now is our chance to really sort of push our chips into the middle of the table. But I feel like the Falcons, are a couple years away from that.
Yeah, we're just not there yet. I feel like, it's got to be a team that just all they need is a great quarterback play. Something I hate to say it, something like the 49ers. You've seen what happened to them in the championship game. So You know, man, maybe a team like that or something, you know, that's more ready. But the Falcons, they're on the way. We're just not there yet. It's just like, but I feel like crazy, man. Dimitroff probably would have pulled that trigger. That draft pick would have been gone. That draft pick would have been gone.
Yeah, probably. I mean, like, you know, because I think a lot of it comes from people seeing the last couple of years where you've seen a team like the Rams go out there and get Stafford and win a Super Bowl. The Bucks go out there and get Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl. And so the people are like, oh, do that. But like, I think people forget, like, the team that Tom Brady inherited was already built. Like, they were already a top 5. I think the Bucks were like the third best offense in the league with Jameis Winston throwing 30 interceptions before they got Tom Brady. Like, you know, so they were, like, at least from an offensive standpoint, they were a quarterback away, just someone who wouldn't turn the ball over 30 times.
Right.
Like, you know,
turn it over 30 times. I'm going to throw 30 touchdowns. I'm going to turn it over 30 times. Though.
Yeah. And so and obviously the Rams have, you know, were not that far away removed from, you know, their own Super Bowl loss or whatever, right, and been a consistent playoff team. Yeah. So it's just like, I think, you know, when you know, you bring up Dimitroff, like, when you look at the past instances where the Falcons have sort of put all their chips in the middle of the table and made those all-in trades, going, you know, getting Julio to try to put that team over the top, you know, that was a team that had been to the postseason several years in a row, right? You know, you look at the, you know, the Dan Quinn Falcons, when they started paying all those guys because they were like, we've already assembled the they were in the Super Bowl. Like, they started paying those guys after that. And like, you look at the Falcons right now, they've been 7-win team for 4 out of the last 5 years. Like, that foundation isn't quite, you know, they're a quarterback away.
It ain't there yet. We're still building it. But again, I feel like they're doing the right thing. I feel like they're on their way to building that empire that they are still, you know, steady trying to build. All they got to do is just, you know, following the process, you know, draft great, you know, you have a great draft. And shoot, man, just continue to build. Let these young players get better, man. Let them prove their worth. I mean, you got them. Let's see how great Richie Grant going to be this year. You know, so let's see what Albacade has to bring this year. Malone this year, along with Troy Anderson. I mean, I want to see what these guys got. And then I want to see how we draft this year too, bring it all together. And I feel like in a couple of years, just like you just noted, the Falcons going to be right there. They're going to be right there. It'll be great if they win the division. I feel like that'll be a tall task, but it'll be a great step if it was to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's a very winnable division. So I'm definitely looking forward to what they do this year. I think they can put some things together and you know, get to a point where, you know, if we're doing this in December, like, we're talking about, okay, well, they just gotta, if they can win this game and they can win this game, you know, they're in the playoffs, you know, that type of season. Great. So I think, you know, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, hopefully we'll be looking pretty good at where the direction of this team is.
Exactly. Well, my man, I appreciate you for doing this again, as I always do. And, you know, so I'm definitely going to be checking you out because I know you got you another episode coming up, and I'm going to be peeping you out as I'm probably doing some editing and everything. Appreciate you always coming on, talking these Atlanta Falcons, these new moves. Hey, man, we spending some money, but we saving some too, man, leaving a little bit on the dresser.
Absolutely, man. Really appreciate you having me on, man.
No problem, man. So until next time, be generational because it's always time to be. Why settle for less when you can have more with the vision? The show that's cool and fly too. A1 Forever Sports, Chris Tip Moore, Aaron Freeman of the Locked On Falcons. Still can't believe that I dropped Aaron Foster. And until next time, y'all, be cool, and I'll holler.
A1. Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Jam. Cooler and